Kyle Rittenhouse. And Kyle, so many people have had so many questions about the AR-15 and about taking an AR-15 into a crowd and a volatile situation. Looking back on that, do you think that was a good idea?
If I would have known that if I would have known that I had to take 2 lives that night, I don't think I would have gone there, but we can't change that.
Generally speaking, it's, there are going to be a lot of protests in the future. That's going to continue. Would you advise anyone else to take an AR-15, assault-style weapon or high-powered rifle, into a volatile situation?
After what I've gone through, I don't think it's worth having to fight for your life if you are ever attacked. Of course, protect your house if you're at your house, but I don't think anybody should be in that situation. And they may be forced to defend themselves, and they may end up being prosecuted just for simply having to defend their life.
But looking back on it, you regret being there that night?
I wouldn't say I regret. I regret going there. I don't regret defending myself. I regret making the decision to go there. But what I'm trying to say is, if I could go back, I would not have gone there. I would have stayed home, but we can't change that. I went there to protect property, but I was attacked by violent people, which forced me to defend myself.
How do you process it was quite an incident that you were involved in. The images of what you saw when you fired your weapon. Did you know that the gun was that powerful? Had you fired a weapon before and seen anything like this before? Were you fluid and comfortable with a weapon like that?
That rifle was the only weapon I was legally allowed to have. I've shot it before, and a gun is a gun. It's still got to do the same thing. It fires a bullet.
Some don't. Some do. I mean, high-powered weapons can do a lot more damage than say, a pistol. But are you affected at all by the incident itself, the pulling the trigger and seeing the result of pulling the trigger and one man dying, another man dying, and another man being severely injured? You had to have seen what happened.
Look, I have nightmares from being attacked. I remember having to defend myself, and it's something that keeps me up at night.
Tell me a little more about that.
Like I said earlier, it's something that I live with, of having to take somebody's life and defend myself.
So when you have those nightmares, what do they look like? What do they sound like? What's happening in your nightmares?
It's just reliving the events of what happened.
But be more specific.
I'll wake up in like a cold sweat, reliving being attacked and chased, and that night of what happened to me.
And do you ever have the same kinds of nightmares about the deaths of those men and the injury to the third man?
I have, not really, but I have nightmares of them killing me if I didn't defend myself.
What do you think of when you think of? It's a lot for a 17, now 18-year-old man to process, taking the lives of people, humans, real men with real families. Do you think much about it? Do you stop down and ponder the lives lost, the families left behind, or are you not there yet?
I was forced to defend myself, and I think about that every day. If they never attacked me.
But it doesn't eat away at you.
It does bother me. Nobody ever wants to have to kill somebody, but I was forced to defend myself.
If you had a message for the families of those men, what would it be?
I'm not sure. I don't know how I can answer that right now, because there's pending civil lawsuits that I believe are going to be filed.
So you would be able to answer? Do you have a feeling one way or the other, but you can't answer because of civil litigation?
I'm not going to answer that question right now.
Okay, understand. What is your feeling now about the the weapon that you used. Do you feel the same about the weapon today that you did the day before you were in this circumstance? Has anything changed about you and the use of a weapon and carrying a weapon?
It was the only weapon that night that I was legally allowed to have. If I could have any other weapon that night, I would have carried a pistol.
And what about going forward? Will you ever brandish an AR-15 assault-style weapon again? Are you worried about it? Do you fear it? Do you have a visceral reaction to it? I just want to kind of get in your head about how you're affected by all of this.
I don't know how to answer that. I can't read the future on that one.
How do you feel about AR-15s now?
I believe everybody has the right to own firearms, but I don't know.
Without question, they have the right. But the feelings, like, do you? Some people might say, I never want to touch the gun again. Some people will say, I absolutely will touch that gun again. It hasn't affected me in that way.
Like I said, it's people's rights to own firearms if they want to.
Right. Under Wisconsin law, you were within your right.
Yes.
The jury decided. It's clear cut. Under other states, it may not have gone like that because the law is different. There's a duty to retreat. Other elements of the law may not have been met.
I did retreat in Wisconsin, and I don't know the other laws for other states. I just know I was charged in Wisconsin, and I defended myself.
And the
in
certain
Wisconsin.
laws, yeah, and the certain laws in Wisconsin certainly were in your favor in this particular case, and that may be very well why the jury voted the way they did. In other states, that might not have happened. Are those other states wrong?
I don't know the states for other law, but it was self-defense around the board. It was me being chased and somebody trying to steal my gun and attack me and pointing a gun at my head and hitting me with a skateboard.
When we come back after the break, other questions from our social media users, including the racial component of this. Even though the three people who were killed or injured in this case were white, Kyle is white, it is still, without question, still a racial story. When we come back, we'll dig back into that. More with Kyle Rittenhouse right after this.